It's a great honor and a privilege to introduce Dr. Retired Colonel Survivor, most important, ex-president of the Jewish community here
Athens in central border of Greece.
And you've been active in the Jewish community for over 40 years.
Yes, that's correct. And just to say a few words about my childish life, I was born in Athens, not far from here, in 1937. And when the Second World War started, I was about 6 years old. No, 4 or 5 years old. And we lived in a very nice neighborhood. It's called Petralona. And why? Because this area was the Jewish neighborhood, not ghetto. Neighborhood, many Jews, because the synagogue was very close. They could come here on foot on Saturdays and Fridays. And when Germans came to Greece in 1943, my father has a very good friend, a doctor, a physician, a Christian, who was involved in resistance forces in Athens area with the help of the police of that time and also from the church. So when things get worse and worse after Saloniki, and my father, with the help of his friend and other friends, we moved the whole family, unknown among unknowns, to a place about 10 kilometers from here, in Athens area. And we rent a house, and the only person that we could communicate and we have a contact was this doctor, and who came every second day to bring food and get some money from my father and my mother. And we have he also provided for false identity cards. My name changed, our name, the family's name changed from Albalas to Donos, and me from Benjamin Kostas. My father from Jacob went to Orestes, and my mother and my grandmother and my sister all changed their names from Carolina, Ventura and Victoria to Maria. Maria and Kostas are very well-known, very common names in the Greek society. So we stayed there, covered, hidden for every day, and my father went in the yard mornings and afternoons, giving the signals in the neighborhood that he was working somewhere, and he left the house in the morning and he came back in the early evening. So we stayed there for 20 months, and when the liberation, that was about 43, happened the bad things in Thessaloniki in March 24 of 1943 in Greece, in Athens. 1 year later, in 1944, exactly the eve of Pesach, that time. So we stayed there, hidden, without any contact with unknown persons, with our false names, as I told you, for 20 months. And then we came back to our place, the original place in Petralona, I told you, and we found back our home, not confiscated by others. And I grew up there. And then I went to the school, and from the school I went to the high school, and then I entered to the university, and at the same time, as a veterinarian, I gave, because my family was very poor, I had to go somewhere to have a free accommodation, free expenses, free everything. So the only way was the military school. The military school as a veterinarian, and because there is a school in Thessaloniki, I spent 5 years and a half in Thessaloniki, because in Thessaloniki still exists a very special school with students, veterinarians, doctors, dentists, and they will have let me say a double life as students with other civilians in the university, and among us in the military school, having the military rules and obligations. And after some years I was married, and then 2 children. Now I have 2 children and 4 grandchildren. I went to several places in Greece. I was that time, and I still am. I am the only officer, career officer in the Greek army. And in 1985, because my kids were grown up, I had to stay here in Athens to start a new life. And I resigned from the army and started my own surgery, my own job as a veterinarian in companion animals, dogs and cats and birds. In between, before that, I had been twice in the United Kingdom after a NATO scholarship, and also I went 1 year. I was in Canada, in Ottawa, as a fellowship of the Canadian Ministry of National Defense, and where my daughter was born in Canada. We left Athens with my wife, pregnant, and she gave birth in Ottawa, Canada. And then after 1985, I was resigned, and I started, I would say, my second life as a community active member. Started from the beginning. I was just a member, then a general secretary, then president, and then president of this organization, then president of Central Board of Jewish Communities, which is the umbrella organization for the remaining communities in Greece. And after that, I was elected as the president of the European Council of Jewish Communities. And yesterday we have the annual meeting, virtual of course. And now I'm still involved in the international Jewish issues, being the chairman of the European March of the Living.
March of the Living? Wow.
Yes. We have now the European sector, let me say, starting and asking and succeeding to get some money for this special issue from the European Commission.
Benjamin, can I ask you, when you were hidden, the family that hid you, that helped to find the location, and were they given Chasidei Matalam? Were they given righteous amongst the nation?
Of course, I forgot that this doctor, it was after my father's efforts. He was given the title and the medal and the diploma of Righteous Among the Nations. And his name is now, he's not anymore in the life.
But his name's in Yad Vashem.
Yes, Yad Vashem. I saw many times when I visited Yad Vashem, I saw his name there. And also I saw his name in Washington in the Holocaust Museum. By coincidence, when I was there 5 or 6 years ago, we have a special, because I was with a very high rank mission, Jewish mission from Europe, so we have a special guide tour in the museum, only for us, because that day was the Veteran Day, and as you probably know, in the United States, the Veteran Day is no work at all. Everything is closed. It's with a high respect this day. So by coincidence, this was very important. By coincidence, when we were given this tour in the museum, the lady who was the general director of this museum, he stopped in front of Greece, the section Greece, and by coincidence again, as she pushed the several findings of the museum, she stopped in the name of his name was Panos Macheras, medical doctor, and this was the initiative, let me say, that pushed me that when I came back, we make this small monument in honoring the writers among nations. And there is outside of, before of the synagogue, of that synagogue, the big one, there is like a book like.
Yes. That's for the writers.
You were there until when we make the opening. It was 5 years ago, 6 years ago, the opening. After I came back from Washington, I was the leading person who made all this thing. And now my ideas is, and I hope that we will do it with the help of the church, the Greek church, and of course with the help of the Ministry of Education and Religious Affairs, to make every year, or at least every second year, a special memory day for these people, for the
because they endangered their lives by helping.
Of course, and we think that we have to show
appreciation
to appreciation and our respect, and we remember them, because without them, 353 I think is now after this monument. Probably if today we are about 4,000 to 5,000 Jews all over Greece, if they didn't do what they did, then probably there will be half of them.
Wow. And can I just ask, your story is unbelievable. When you were in hiding,
Yes.
What did you do during the day? Did your
I was very young, 6 years old, 5 years old. I had orders from my parents, if I go out, not saying my name. Because if I told to other kids in the area that my name was Benjamin, it was a little bit dangerous for the whole family. And that's why I didn't go out. I stayed all day in the house, in the yard, playing by myself. And my sister was born just in 1941, and she was a baby. So nothing to do. Only all the day to stay inside, to see my mother, to see my grandmother. I have also my grandmother with us, from my father's side. She was very old, and one of the fears of my father was if she passed away, what is going on? Thanks God, she survived. She came back to our place in our home here in Petrarona, and in 1951 with my father they went to Israel, where many 3 or 4 sisters of my father, daughters of my grandmother, were there in a very good position, and when she passed away, she was buried in Israel. This was her dream, and the dream was.
And any other family?
Other family from my we lost two sisters of my father with husbands from Arta. Arta is near to Ioannina, if you know the place. It was in the western part of Greece, in Auschwitz. But two daughters of one of these two sisters of my father were survived, hidden during the. And then my father, they came and lived with us, and in '48 they moved to Israel, and one of them is still alive. And when I go to Israel, I visit. The other one passed away 2 years ago. Also from my, this is the two losses, let me say, from my father's side. From my mother's side, all sisters and brothers survived, hidden, everybody hidden, except of her father and her mother, because they were living here in Petralona, in the area that it was the Jewish neighborhood, and they didn't find the way to be covered, to be hidden, and they were kept by Germans, and they are lost in Auschwitz.
And what happened in Saloniki?
It was 1 year before Athens.
But I'm sure the community must have realized that it can happen in Athens as well.
Don't forget, at that time the communications are very difficult. No internet, no phones, nothing at all. So only by personal narratives we could know. My father has an instinct to understand what's going on. So when Thessaloniki started sending people with the trains in Auschwitz, has some information that something happens in Thessaloniki, but what exactly nobody knew. So his friend started to organize a net with his people to bring us, not only us, but also other Jews who lived in the same area, to move in the hidden places. And one of these hidden places was our place, and because the doctor was also the doctor of the family, for the children and for the old ones, and he was and I continued to see him for many years after, until his death. I visit him every 10 days, every 2 weeks, and saying, hello, how are you, Mr. Panos? He was very friend of my father, and also very close friend to myself and my family, of course. And we still have, I and my sister, we have phone connection, let me say, or phone contacts with his doctor.
That's wonderful.
Who was in the United States for many years, who was married there, but now he lives in Athens. So, on many occasions we call each other and we say, hello, how are you? Eleni is her name. So this is the life.
If I can just ask, what message do you give to the future generations? I know you're involved with the March of the Living, and you're involved in Jewish community life for over 40 years.
Yes.
So what message would you give?
I would say keep your Jewish identity. Any difficulty should pass away, throw away. Don't forget what happened to your parents and your grandparents and your people during the Holocaust. And let's hope that things like that would not happen again, never.
I just want to thank you. I'm so exceptionally grateful. I'm just going to come in for a second. So Benjamin, I just want to thank you so much. I cannot tell you how much I appreciate it.
No, it's okay. My let me say, my feelings and my duty, if you think so.
No, but coming to Athens, I've been a few times to Athens, and to meet somebody who was hidden and a survivor, it is such a great zchut, such a tremendous honor.
It happened, and I was very moved when you asked from the community to make a contact with some survivors.
Well,
And because I'm still involved in this I would say this event. It's not event, it's everyday life for me. And because I've been going to the schools, I give some lectures about my life. What you asked me, I'm going to say the same thing, more or less the same thing with children in the high schools, because this is now the new attitude through the Ministry of Education and Jewish Affairs. All our survivors, we go after invitation, of course, to several schools, either in Athens or in outside of Athens in the country, and we speak to the children and the teachers what happened that day in our own personal life.
It's to Jews and non-Jews. Yeah.
Of course, non-Jews, mainly non-Jews, because Jews, they know something from their parents, from their grandparents, but for non-Jews, this is the focus now. This is the goal.
And Benjamin, I think you must be very pleased, isn't even the word, but to see the connection between Israel and Greece and Cyprus being so close.
Now, yes, because when I was president of the Jewish community of Athens, at that time it was not things so easy as today. Today, really.
But it is really close.
We are in a honeymoon, as I say to my heart and my friends. That's true. Excellent, but that time it was the Palestinian issue on a very high priority for Greeks. It was socialists here in Greece. Arafat was a very good friend of Greece that time, Arafat. But now, for 10 consecutive years, things are changed 100%.
Really
we are very happy for that. That's why anti-Semitism is, there is anti-Semitism, no doubt about that, but not hard anti-Semitism. We don't have any personal attacks to either to members of the community. From time to time, not during the last 2 or 3 years, nothing. Some graffiti either in walls, or in the monument, or in the cemetery, but nothing serious, let me say. But there is, and I repeated that, there is anti-Semitism. And when I was president of our community, we started that time to celebrate the 27th of January, which is the International Day of the Holocaust. And I was the first president of the community saying directly to the president of the state that time, who was honoring the event, that Mr. President, just to tell you, just to inform you that there is anti-Semitism in Greece, and you have the obligation to start and take measures to diminish this thing. And now we have.
I think that really you made such an impact, because it really.
Yes, it was that time. It was something very new, saying it directly to the president of the state that there is a sign, because that time people, because of the fears of the past and some other factors, we say always all Greeks who were helping us to find a hidden place like me, but it was not sure. Of course, there were 52 people who helped us very much. Having every day the danger to be executed by Germans if they were caught helping Jews. But there are also other people who, traitors,
informers, the informers.
Yeah. Exactly. From that time started to say the things clear. There is anti-Semitism. We are very respectful to those who helped us. We remember them, and I think this is now the new motto, the new frame of everyday life in Greece.
And I just want to mention, I've been walking around Athens with my kippah on, and I don't feel any danger. And
we don't have any problems for all Jews who want to keep their kippah and going everywhere in Athens. There is no any problem as far as I know, and I'm
many people have come up and said shalom as well. But I just want to mention, I find it very, not only amazing, but when you went back to your apartment, that your apartment was still there and it wasn't taken over. Because in many places in Europe, unfortunately,
we know that after we left the house and we moved to the new house, far from the old neighborhood with our new names, some people, probably police people or friends of Germans went to our home here in Petraron and asked where the family Albalas is now, but nobody knew anything about our movement, where and how, and the address of this new place. So we know someone, 2 or 3 people went there to find out where the family was. Because after what happened here in the synagogue, here was the gathering of the people, and were caught and then sent to Germany.
Well, I want to thank you, and I must tell you are an inspiration.
No,
and you should just
my pleasure.
At Mavis Room till 120 in good health, and
thank you very much.
I'm extremely grateful to you. So thank you.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Enjoy your stay in Athens.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Wonderful.
So this is a monument in appreciation of the righteous Greek Gentiles that hid over 300 Jews in Greece at tremendous danger to their own lives, and they've made this on metal sheets. It's outside the Jewish center in the synagogue, and the names are inscribed. All the names are inscribed. With tremendous appreciation. And this was dedicated in 2016. And it is right outside the synagogue and the Jewish center. Here in Athens. This is the broken Magen David, which is the Holocaust memorial in Athens, and inscribed are the towns and villages where the Jewish population unfortunately were decimated.